Okay, hi everybody. We're on Masechet Eruvin, page 54. A long series of Aggadot today, most of them about remembering one's Torah and different strategies for internalizing and study, and also the love of Torah. So a lot of very beautiful Aggadot, really just staccato one after the other. So we were finished with Beruria, who saw a student who was studying quietly, and she kicked him and said, if you use all of your body, then it will be remembered. And similarly, the B. Eliezer had a student who was studying quietly, and after 3 years, it says he forgot everything he learned. Okay, so that's where we're at. Tana, Talmid echad haya lo Rabbi Eliezer she'itchayev b'srefa lamakom. Now we're going to another story about a student of Rabbi Eliezer, that one time he was liable to death by burning for some sin that he made. But the rabbis let him off because he served under Rabbi Eliezer, so just the merit of his teacher worked in his favor. Shmuel told his student, Rav Yehuda, Shinina, meaning a sharp one, a sharp student. Petach pumech kere, petach pumech teneh. Open your mouth and read the Torah, Tanakh. Open your mouth and recite the Mishnah. So that it will endure in you and you will live a long life. They bring life to the people who find them, and good health. Makes a play on words, not to those, rather to those who those who find them. It's to those who express them with their mouths. So say it out loud. You remember it better. And now this is not about specifically learning, but more life advice. This is go grab and eat and grab and drink. In other words, enjoy this world while you can, because the world that we are departing from, that we know we're here temporarily, is like a wedding feast. A wedding lasts a very short time. When you're at the while you're at the wedding, make 2 plates, make 3 plates, because then it's going to end. So enjoy it while it lasts. Amar lerav Hamnuna beni im yesh lecha heteb lecha she'en bashe'ot ta'anug ve'en lamavet hitmahmeya. Similarly, Rav told his student, if you have some means, then use them, enjoy them, because in the underworld there's no enjoyment, and so there's no reason to store it up, nothing to wait for. You say, no, I'm going to save up for my children so that they'll have. Who's going to tell you what's going on when you're in the underworld? In other words, what are children going to do? Are they going to spend it wisely or not? That's one interpretation. Or another interpretation is, who knows who's going to go to the underworld first? So don't bother with that either. People are like grass, these blossom and then they wither, and that's just simply the cycle of life, like the cycle of nature. So enjoy it while you can. All right, kind of surprising, I guess, to have this somewhat materialistic advice from the rabbis, but here it is. Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Hamelech baderech v'nimo levaya, yasok b'torah shneimar ki livyadchen hem. If you're going if you're walking alone, you have no one to talk to, no one to have offer protection. So with you, so recite Torah as you go, and that will be a great accompaniment. And also protection, and keep you busy while you're walking. Furthermore, if you have a headache, study Torah. They're good for your head. If you have a sore throat, they're like necklaces around your neck. Stomachache, no problem, right? This is one answer fits all. Bones hurt, same thing. Study Torah. It's like marrow in your bones. Chash b'chol gufo yasok b'Torah. Any bodily pain everywhere. Shneimar ulchol besaro marpeh. It's all pasuk from Mishle. Mishle is talking about chokhmah, wisdom, and the rabbis equate that with the Torah. Amar Rav Yehuda b'Rabbi Yochia, bor eshet lo midat HaKadosh Baruch Hu midat basav v'adam. Midat basav v'adam adam notem sam lachavero, laze yafeh v'laze kasher. V'HaKadosh Baruch Hu eno ken. Natan Torah Yisrael, sam chayim l'chol gufo, shnemar l'chol marpeh, l'chol besaro marpeh. Look how different Torah is from regular medicine. Human medicine, something that's good for this person is bad for that person, right? If you don't need a medication and you take it, then it's going to make you feel worse. Whereas Torah is only good; it doesn't do any harm to anyone. Amar Rav Ami, mai dichtiv ki na'im ki tishmerem bibitnecha yikonu yachtav al sefatecha. What does it mean? It's pleasant if you keep it within you and let it be firmly attached to your lips. When is Torah pleasant? When you hold on to it, in other words, when you remember it. And when can you hold on to it in your body and remember it? When you express it out loud. So always study out loud. Man is joy in what he says with his mouth, and everything in the right time is good. When is it happy? When you say it out loud. When do you fulfill the joy of in your mouth? When you have everything in the right time, when you have a ready answer for whoever asks you a question, whatever says something, but you have to know it by heart, you have to know it within you in order to be able to access and produce whenever you need it, the appropriate statement. That the Torah is close to you in your mouth and in your mind to do. When is it close to you? When it's in your mouth and your heart that you do. When you articulate it, then that you internalize it, you make it your own. They're all teaching the same point, but they're offering various pesukim to prove it. You've given him his heart's desire and not withheld the request of his lips. The first half of the pasuk talks about heart, something you're thinking about. The second half talks about lips, something you say. When does God answer someone's prayers? When he says the words of Torah, when God answers a person's heart, what he wants in his heart, when he says Torah out loud. Drawing the same pasuk, Rava says the first half and the second half seem to contradict each other. Which is it? Is it what you say have in your mind, or what you say with your words? If one has merit, then even he just thinks about it and it'll come true. But if not, he has to express it. But it's always better to express it out loud. תנא דבר רבי אליעזר בן יעקב, כל מקום שנאמר נסח סלע ועד, אין לו הפסק עולמית. נסח תכתיב כי לא לעולם אריב ולא לנסח אכסוף. So anytime you see in Tanakh these words, נסח סלע ועד, then it continues forever. Nesach, as Yeshaya says, I will not be angry at the people forever. So that's right, le'olam. It says also le'olam here. So that proves nesach means forever. Sela dichtib kasher, also nesach. Right? This proves that nesach is forever. Sela dichtib kasher shamanu ken anybody else what be Elohenu Elohim yichonenea ad olam sela. So you see that God is going to establish the city. Says olam forever, and the word sela. Va'ed dichtib Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. So it has the word leolam meaning forever, and the word va'ed. So there you go. And that's a good definition of those words. It is interesting because this whole section is about memorizing things well, and we have a mnemonic to remember these statements about memorizing. So this is a self-fulfilling Aggadah. The mnemonic is going to have something to do with anakim, chains, lechayav, luchot, and harut. cheeks, tablets, and engraved. All right, let's look for those. Returning back to the pasuk in Mishle, that that the wisdom is like chains around your neck, meaning like a necklace around your neck. If you make Torah like a necklace that it hangs loosely, in other words, you should be loose in your character, and it should be seen but not seen. In other words, you should be humble and hidden. Tamudo mitkayem beyado, im lav and tamudo mitkayem beyado. But if you're very strict or arrogant, then his Torah will not last within him. Cheeks like a bed of spices. Now is from Shir Hashirim, describing the beloved like spices. If a person is like a garden bed and everyone treads upon, if he's very humble, that's good. And if he's like spices that he lets everyone enjoy from the smell, and so too if he teaches Torah and is generous and helps everybody out, then tamudo mitkayem, v'im lav and tamudo mitkayem. But if not, then his Torah study will not endure. Rabbi Eliezer, my dichtib luchot eben. אם אדם משים עצמו את לחייו כאבן זו שאינה נמחת, תלמודו מתקיים בידו, ואם לאו אין תלמודו מתקיים בידו. So now quoting in Shemot, we're mentioning the luchot, so making a play on words of luchot and lechayav. If your cheeks are like stone, it means if you don't let your cheeks rest, that your mouth is always moving and reciting Torah, then it will be endure in you'll remember it, otherwise not. Doesn't mean that's engraved upon the tablets. If the first luchot had not been forgotten, then it had not been broken, Torah would not be forgotten. In other words, engraved al haluchot upon those. So that this was, the second tablets were not simply a replacement of the first, but were a lower level, and we didn't, now we have to work much harder to kind of engrave them upon our own hearts because they're no longer engraved on those first tablets. If we still had the first tablets, no nation would ever rule over us, because harut, engraved, as a play on words on harut, of being free. So, that first original berit between Aggadot Baruch Hu and Israel, that was like a pristine, special relationship, and that would have been a higher level. And once they broke that, although Moshe negotiated for renewed berit, but the terms of that berit were on a lower level that allowed them to be punished later. Amar Rav Matana, my dichtib midbar Matana. It's interesting that Rav Matana, it happens to be his name, is also asking, what does the pasuk mean that regarding the different stops that the people went in the wilderness? They went from Midbar to a place called Matana. That's his name too. Im mesim Adam atzmo kemidbar ze shakol dashin bo tamudo mitkayem beyado v'im lav en tamudo mitkayem beyado. If you make yourself like a wilderness and be humble, that everyone you let people step over you, then your Torah will be fulfilled, and otherwise not. In other words, Matana will be given to you as a gift if you are humble. So Rav Yosef had a grievance against Rava. Rava did something wrong, insulted him in some way. Right before Yom Kippur, Rava wanted to clear his accounts, so he says, let me go and apologize. Azal ashkeched l'shama'eh deka mazig lekasa. So Rava goes, and Rav Yosef was blind. So Rava sees his attendant mixing wine. Amar havli ve'amzageh ana. So Rava says, let me do it. Let me prepare the wine and I'll serve it. Yahavle mezageh. So he mixed the wine. Kid ta'ameh amar, he brings it to Rav Yosef. He's blind, so doesn't know who's bringing it to him. But when he tasted it, he said, "Dameh hay mezigah le mezigah de Rava bere de Rav Yosef bar Chama." He was so sensitive, right? He could tell. Oh, this is maybe he was a student before. So students back then wouldn't only learn, but they would also serve the master. So he would have done this so often. And so he says, I can tell this is the mixture, this is the taste, this is the way that Rava prepares this. Must be him. Amale anahu, yes, it is indeed me. So obviously he's coming in that way, in a subservient way. That's his way of apologizing. Amale, Rav Yosef says to him, La teteh bakarich adim farashat li hane kira'eh. So don't sit down until you explain this to me. In other words, if you can explain this to this pasuk, then I forgive you. Okay, so that's all the stops that the Bnei Israel made in the desert. It says, explain to me what this means. Okay, when we read this, we usually think, okay, this just means our names of places. These are the places that they went. But you see that the Midrash, the rabbis here, interpret this allegorically, that these place names symbolize certain ideas. Amar, so he answers, Im adam esim atzmo kemidbar zeh shekol dashin, bo Torah nitana lo b'matana. That's the one we said before, that if someone is humble like a desert, then he can receive the Torah as a present. That's what it means, u'imbar matana. And the next section, next word is matana nachaliel, kevan shenechalo el ole ligdula. Once he has that present, so then he can inherit and rise to greatness. And that's the next one, nachaliel bamot. Bamot means a high place. But after you get a promotion, if that goes to your head and you become haughty, then God will bring you back down into the valley. But if he repents once again, okay, we finished, about Haggai, and we finished that pasuk, but now we're adding on the pasuk from Yeshaya, and so every valley will be exalted in the end of days, so then he can be brought back up. Okay, so the point is that he came to apologize, and he was testing him on this pasuk. Do you know the value of humility? If you do, then I forgive you. And I suppose he did. Elohim. This is from Mizmor 68, the Mizmor that we say on Shavuot. That says your flock found dwelling in it. You prepared goodness for the poor. Im adam esim atzmo kehayazo shedoreshet ve'ochelet ve'igadam resh masrachat ve'ochelet tamudo mitkayem beyado. If a person is like makes himself like an animal, traps his prey and eats immediately. In other words, if a person, everything he learns right away, he reviews it. Right, he doesn't waste any time, and so he goes back and he's hungry for his Torah learning like a wild animal. Then that's good. Then it'll stay. Or others say if he makes himself like an animal, like he doesn't care about anything else, and he only is concentrating on his Torah study, then it will be fulfilled, even if he looks crazy. If so, he can have a private dinner with Kadosh Baruch Hu himself. אמר רבי חייא בר אבא אמר רבי יוחנן מה דכתיב נוסר תאנה יאכל פריה למה נמשו תורה כתאנה מה תאנה זו כל זמן שאדם ממשמש בה המוסה בתאנים מכתיב לתורה כל זמן שאדם הוגה בהן מוסה בהן טעם. So pasuk in Mishleh says someone he who guards a fig tree will eat its fruit. In other words, it's good to be it's good to work in a fancy restaurant, then you get some of the leftovers. So why? But this is comparing it to Torah. Why is Torah like a fig tree? So a fig tree, anytime you go look for figs in a fig tree, you always find some. Fig trees are perennial. They don't produce all their fruit in one shot, but all the time. So you can always find a good fig in a tree. So to Torah, anytime a person learns them, he'll always find something meaningful, something tam, something tasty and interesting. I think if you do daf yomi, you'll confirm that this is true. Every daf is always some surprise, something interesting. And here's one of the most surprising Aggadot, one that Rav Lichtenstein used to quote often. אמר רבי שמואל בר נחמני, מה דכתיב איילת אהבים ויעלת. לכן, למה נמשלו דברי התורה לאיילת, אומר לך, מה איילה רחמה, שר וחביבה על בועלה כל שעה ושעה, כשעה ראשונה, אף דברי התורה חביבין, על לומדיהן כל שעה ושעה, כשעה ראשונה. Really amazingly erotic Aggadah. So comparing Torah to a deer who has a narrow womb, and the male coming upon it gets enjoyment every time like the first time because she is narrow. So too, Torah is beloved on those who learn it, and every time someone learns Torah, even after many, many years, it's like the first time and is enjoyable. Okay, quite surprising. It also bestows grace upon those who study it. Dadeha yeravucha bechol et lama nimshul dibret Torah kedad ma dad ze kol zman shetinok memashmesh bo moseh bo halab af dibret Torah kol zman shadam hoge bahen moseh bahen ta'am. So Torah is also like a nursing mother. Anytime the baby looks for milk, baby can find milk. So too, anytime someone studies Torah, they can always find something spiritually nourishing. Baba tatishge tamid, always be in passionate love for her. Kegon Rabbi Eliezer ben Pedat, אמרו עליו רבי אליעזר בן פדת שהיושב ועוסק בתורה בשוק התחתון של סיפורי, וסתינו מוטל בשוק העליון של סיפורי. When he would sit and study Torah, he was so like a absent-minded professor. His cloak would be up on top, and he would be on the lower level. He was just moving around. He had no sense of what was going on around him. He was so engrossed. I think this is following up on the person before, the one who acts wild in his study of Torah. There are other Aggadot that say a person should always be put together. A rabbi should always never have a stain on him or anything like that, and look nice. Okay, but this is the complement of that. Tanya Amar Rabbi Yitzchak ben Azab, Hamachat ba Adam litelo umasa bo saraf. Someone came to take the cloak and tried to steal it, but there was a serpent on it. In other words, guarding it. So it's confirming that what he did had a divine sanction and protection. Tana debera ana Rab Anan. Ma dichtiv rochabe atonot secharot yoshbe al medin v'olecheh al derech sichu. This is in Shirat Devorah. You who ride on white donkeys and sit on rich cloths and that walk by the way, tell of it. So going on donkeys all the time, these are people that travel. These are sages that travel often. They go from city to city to teach everywhere they go. In Greco-Roman culture also had traveling sophists that would go around from place to place and teach whatever they were teaching. So the rabbis fulfilled the same role, but for Torah instead. They're called white because they make the Torah understandable like a noonday sun. They also go around, they act as judges too. And they act, judge, din emet means that they follow procedure correctly. And they're not biased or they don't get bribed. Elu ba'aleh mikra, al derech elu ba'aleh mishnah, sichu elu ba'aleh talmud, shekol sichatan divrei Torah. And so they teach all the three sections of Torah, the Tanakh, the Mishnah, meaning the recitation by heart of all the traditions, and Talmud, meaning deriving, reasoning one case from another. Amadav Shizbi, Mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Ma dichtiv lo yacharoch remiyah sedo, lo yichye velo yarich yamim, sayad ha-ramai. So what does this mean that remiyah, someone who is deceitful, will not roast his catch? Sedo is his catch, lo yacharoch. Right, so he's trapping an animal but he won't get any benefit from it if he's slothful or deceitful. He won't last long because even though he catches the animals, he doesn't hold on to it. So someone could make a cheat and make a quick buck, but he's not going to be successful in the long term. So what does this mean? This is either understood as a question or as an answer, right? Can one who act in this way, maybe he's a fool, but why are you describing as deceitful? So, or maybe it's a statement, right? Can someone who tricks his way ever reap the benefit of what he does? Okay, and this is going to be compared to Torah also, that if someone doesn't hold on to what he traps, doesn't memorize it, then he's not going to have benefit from it. Someone who's catching birds, every time he catches one, he has to break its wings. So that it won't fly away. Otherwise, what's the point? He's catching one, it flies away. Catch another one, and the other one, then the first one flies away. So, so too with words of Torah. When you when you have a chidush and you learn something, then hold on to it, break its wings so it doesn't fly away. Memorize it, and then one thing at a time. Better to know a little bit very well than to learn a lot but not retain anything. Amar Rabba bar Rav Sechora, Amar Rav Huna, Ma dichtiv hon mehebel yema'et vekobetz al yad yarbe. Im ose adam torato chavilot mitma'et. Im lav kobetz al yad yarbe. If right, the pasuk says, wealth gotten through vanity, hevel will be diminished. But if you just gather a little by little, right, put some savings, put $100 away every month, and eventually it'll build up. So too with Torah, if you try to learn large amounts of Torah all at once, then it will be diminished. But if you just learn one thing and then another and then another, then eventually, even though it's a little at a time, you'll have a lot at the end. The rabbis, he says, know this, but they don't follow this advice. They transgress it. Okay, maybe this is a heter for studying Daf Yomi. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Ana abadta b'kayam biyadai. Rav Nachman says, I did this. I just learned a little bit and reviewed a lot, and it was endured in me. Tanu Rabbanan, Kesad Seder Mishnah. Okay, good. This is a famous baraita about how Torah Sheba'al Peh was first transmitted. Moshe lamad mepi gebura. Mishnah here, they mean Torah Sheba'al Peh. All the wording of the teachings. So Moshe first learned them from God. Nichnas Aaron v'shana lo Moshe pirko. Aaron comes in, Moshe teaches it to him. So that's one time that Moshe is teaching. Nistalek Aaron v'yashav l'smo Moshe. Okay, Aaron then goes from in front of him as being a student, sits next to Moshe on the left. Nichnesu banav. So Aaron's children come in. And Moshe Pirkan, Moshe teaches them, while Aharon is sitting next to him, but Aharon is hearing it for the second time, but his children are now hearing it for the first time. And Nistalku Banav, and so then those children come and sit next to Moshe and Aharon. Elazar Yashar Lemin Moshe v'Itamar the small Aharon, two brothers, one to the right of them and one to the left of them. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Leolam Aharon Lemin Moshe Chozer. Now he says the other way around. The Aaron goes to the right of Moshe. Then the elders come in and Moshe teaches them. So it's the first time that the elders are hearing it, but the sons of Aaron, this is the second time they're hearing it, and Aaron is hearing it for the third time. And then the elders come and sit next to them, and all of the nation comes, and Moshe teaches it to them. So Aharon got to hear it 4 times from Moshe. Aaron's children 3 times. The elders twice. And the nation as a whole heard it once from Moshe. Okay, but it's not over. Then Nistalek Moshe leaves. Interesting that Moshe has to leave. It's kind of like if you really want to pass something on, the student has to be able to teach it without the teacher there. So it's important that he give him some leeway. So Moshe leaves, and then the Hadon really has to make sure that he knows it well enough that he can master it and teach it without Moshe. So v'shana lehen Aharon pirko. So then Aharon teaches it. Like Aharon leaves. Shanu lehen banav pirkan, and the sons of Aharon teach it. Istago banav shanu zikanim pirkan, and they leave, and the zikanim teach it to the whole nation. Himsa b'yad hakol arba. Therefore, everybody heard it 4 times, right? Just each one, except Moshe, but he heard it from God. But everybody else hears it from someone 4 times. It's really a beautiful a ritual of having over these overlapping generations, and you're going to have this tight multi-braided cord. Then it can be passed on without losing anything. That's why you have to teach your students 4 times. Even Aharon, who heard it from Moshe, who heard it from God, and yet even he had to hear it 4 times, all the more so anybody else. Hejot, that's the Hebrew equivalent, comes from the Greek idiot. Okay, it wasn't. I mean, it's something as bad as the English word today, but basically the same thing. Okay, Rabbi Akiva Omer, minayin shechayav adam lishnot talmido ad sheyilmedenu, shene'emar ve'lamedah et bnei Israel. How do you know that the teacher has to continue repeating it to the student until the student understands? As it says, lamedah. Right? Teach it to Bnei Israel. Has to be clear and organized in their mouths. As it says, put it in their mouths, make it so that they have mastered it and are able to yet themselves teach it to others. This is a good justification that rabbis can repeat their classes every year, right? 4 years. You get to teach it 4 times, and you need some new material. And that has, you have to also explain it to them, show them panim, show them reasons for it, make it understandable to them and interesting. Because it says asher tasim lifnehem, put it out before them so that it looks attractive. Now we ask, why didn't they study everything from Moshe? Why didn't Moshe just teach it 4 times? And that's it, right? Everybody's there. Moshe teaches it 4 times, and that'll be easier. I want to give honor to Aharon and the Zikanim also, that they have a part, that they also have a chance to be in charge and to be the sole teachers. So instead, then why not have just a 1-to-1 transmission that Aharon will hear from Moshe, and Moshe leave, and then the children of Aharon learn it from Aharon and leave, and then Aharon and Zikanim only learn it from the children, and then only the Zikanim. So it's only have one person transmit to the next. Oh, that's not good. Because Moshe did hear it directly from the Almighty, that is more effective. You want to be able to have that, that experience. It's not like hearing it from a student, hearing it from the origin. So they all get to have that experience of learning it from Moshe, but then the repetition. So even though, yes, it's transmitted, hopefully without anything being forgotten, but still that experience from Moshe is something that is irreplaceable. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Omed Lodam Aharon Limin Moshe Chozer. Right. So Rabbi Yehuda said Aharon goes to the right. Keman Nazlah Detanya Shelosha Sheyu Melachin Bederech Hara Be'emsa Ve'Gadol B'Mino Ve'Katan B'Smolo Le'Mar Rabbi Yehuda Hi Ve'Lo Rabbanan. Baraita that says that when 3 people are walking, so the greatest should be in the middle, and then the second greatest should be on the right. So this seems to follow Rabbi Yehuda, who also said it should be on the right, but not Rabbanan. But that's strange that an anonymous Baraita should follow a minority opinion and not the majority opinion. So we answer, Afilu tema Rabbanan mishum tirha de Aharon. So we said, no, it could be Rabbanan also, but because of the trouble Aron, you have to stand up and sit down again. So we can, in that case, he goes on the left, and so he wouldn't have to stand up again. Famous story, right? Rabbi Pirida, he had a student, he had to teach him 400 times. He didn't get it until 400 times. What a patient teacher this was. One time, Rabbi Pirida was needed for a mitzvah. Probably means for a funeral. So he said, listen, there's going to be a funeral, we'll call you, we'll let you know when the funeral is. So in the meantime, he's teaching the student. He gets to 400 times, and the student, unlike usual, by the 400th time he gets it, this time, he's even the 400th time he doesn't get it. So the teacher says, what happened? How come you're not getting how come you're not grasping it? לאמור איכה מלטה דמצווה, אסחד לדעתי וכל שעתה אמינה, השתה כאמור. So it's because when I knew that you might leave any minute to go to the funeral, so I keep just thinking about that. I'm distracted, right? If he was around today, he would be diagnosed as with a learning disability. So, but they didn't have medication back then. Instead, they kept repeating it. Says, but he couldn't concentrate because he was afraid the teacher was going to leave. Says, listen, I'm going to teach you first. I'm not leaving until you learn the lesson. Don't worry about me leaving. And then he started all over again and taught him 400 times. Okay, to such an extent must a teacher be patient, and to such an extent must a student repeat if he needs to in order to remember it. Because of his great patience and devotion, the divine voice said, would you rather have 400 years added to your life, or that your whole generation should get Olam Haba? So we want the world to come. I'd rather share with everybody. You gave the right answer, and now you get both of them. Okay, I guess he lived a long time, so that's the merit of being patient and spending a long time, that you have more time to spend. There you go. We have to have mnemonics in order to remember the Torah. It's play on words, not put in their mouths, but siman, have it as a sign in their mouths, and then you memorize it through that mnemonic. Shema Arab tachlifa mima'arava zal amrah lekamed Rabbi Abu Amar atun mehatam maitinu la ana mehachametina la. So in the West, when Rabbi Abu in Israel heard this, he said, oh, I have a different pasuk for it. Hasibi lach siunim simi lach. In Yirmiyah, it says, make markers for yourself. Asu siunim la Torah means make markers for the Torah. How do you know that siyun means a sign or symbol? Siyun, as Yechezkel says, if you see a human bone, you want to mark it out that this place is tameh, and so you see that means a sign. Another source that you should make signs. Okay, when you tell wisdom should be as familiar to you as a sister, and moda as as someone who's a good friend. You should call bina a close friend. So moda, as we're using that word to derive modaim, reminders. Stick it, post-it notes. That will always remember it. He makes play on words and switches around the ayin, the dalet, and the ayin. It says make set times to study Torah. That's also very helpful. Okay, we'll just finish the Aggadot. Almost done. והיינו דאמר רב אבדימי בר חמא בר דוסא, מה דכתיב? לא בשמיים היא ולא מעבר לים היא, לא בשמיים היא, שבשמיים היא את צריך לעלות אחריה, ומעבר לים היא אתה צריך לעבור אחריה. So this idea that you have to have great effort in Torah knowledge, that fits with what the Rabbi Dosa said, that it's not bashamayim, because if otherwise you wouldn't be able to get it. So, but if it were, you'd have to, you have to do everything you can in order to acquire Torah, even if you would have to go as far and wide as you needed to. רב אמר לא בשמיים היא, לא תימצא במי שמגביה דעתו עליה כשמיים, לא תמצא במי שמחריב דעתו עליה קיים. That's going back all the way to the previous stuff, where lo b'shamayim means Torah is not found in someone who is haughty and thinks of himself up as high as heaven, and not someone who is thinks he's as wide as the sea, and but rather in someone who is humble, not with a know-it-all. And finally, the Bichan Yochanan Amar Lo B'Shamayim Hi Lo Timase Begasei Ruach Velo Me'ever Layam Hi Lo Timsa Lo Besaharanim Velo Betagarim. So similarly, in Shamayim, it's not, Torah will not be found in someone who's haughty, and not be on the sea means not merchants and traders who are always going across the sea. They're busy with business all the time, so they're not going to have time to set regular hours in order to study Torah, and they will not be able to learn it. So, okay. In conclusion, right, those who have the zechut to study Torah daily is highly recommended, and hopefully in that zechut we will also both learn it and also remember it. Baruch Adonai L'olam. Amen v'amen.